Good evening. I'm Noel Horman, and welcome to A Day in the Life of North County. We're very privileged this evening, as we will be next week, to have with us Marshall Hamil, a man who has tremendous credentials as an instructor in wrestling, boxing, and Kung Fu Sansu. Now, we'll learn all about what that means, but certainly integrating those three disciplines is going to be a challenge, to say the least, and Marshall is eminently qualified to instruct and tell us all about this incredible field, which both has an artistic and sports connotation to it that all of us are fascinating with, or at least most of us are, and at the same time a very realistic application that in the day and age that we live in, I think most of us are well aware of the fact that self-defense is something that most of us have to take a look at in terms of just everyday life. So without any further ado, we want to welcome to our show Marshall Hamil, and greetings, Marshall.
Thank you, Noel. It's nice to be here.
Marshall, as you know, one of the first objectives that we have before we get into this fascinating world of yours is, first of all, to learn a little bit about you. Where were you born and raised and schooled, first of all?
I was born in Whittier, California, and grew up mostly in Southern California, but also lived in Northern California, and then later in life throughout the Western United States. So I'm pretty much a dry climate person. I was schooled also in between Southern California and Northern California, so I'm a native Californian.
In one sentence, this has nothing to do with what we're going to be talking about during the next two shows, but in one or two sentences, how do you compare Southern California with Northern California?
Interesting. I would say that Northern California is more artsy. Is that an adequate explanation?
Sure.
Well, it's mine.
Okay, so it's more artsy. That's interesting.
They have more culture, so to speak. I don't want to put Southern California down. We usually run around with less clothes. We're more native, and maybe we're more into sports, and they're more into intellectual pursuits.
Interesting. Okay, now schooling-wise, where did you go to school in high school?
I went to Lucerna High School, which is in Whittier.
And then college?
College, Rio Hondo College, which is in Whittier also.
All right, now, could you give us sort of paint a portrait for us, if you will, Marshall, your professional career? Where did you start professionally?
I started when I was about 19 years old, and I started in Whittier, and I started at a Kung Fu Sansu studio. And my instructor was also a boxer, so I got some background from him there. And I studied with him for a few years, and then went on to wrestle in college. And after pursuing other business interests, I've maintained my training on my own. And then in the last couple of years, I put this program together, combining those three disciplines to create the program that I have now.
So what you're saying, Marshall, is that for the better part of your professional career, you've been involved in these disciplines.
Right.
Now, did you mention that one time you were involved in horse racing at all? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
We had talked about that earlier. As a child, I was fortunate enough when we lived in Northern California to live on a small farm. So I was introduced to animals there, and we had horses, and I had a real affinity for working with animals. So I spent probably approximately 8 to 10 years working in the horse industry, harness horses, thoroughbreds also, and also show horses, working on breeding farms.
Did you work also in the horse racing business? I mean, there was breeding horses for horse racing?
Correct.
Really? Was that fascinating?
It was really interesting. You would be surprised at people look at the industry as being this nice laid back on the farm type of thing, but it is a big industry, big money, of course, and there's a lot of rules governing what goes on.
Well, Marshall, could you give us a little view now? What is it like to do what you do professionally? Could you give the viewer kind of a portrait of a typical day in your life in self-defense? I mean, because you're running a business now,
right?
So give us, if you will, a typical day in your professional life, or 2 or 3, if that's better.
Well, the first thing that's important for me is to get up early, and I get up at about 4:45, and what I do is go straight down to a gym, and I work out there, whether it's doing a little some weights or some aerobics. I think it's real important for me to get in my time and my training. I also have a small studio and a space for me to work out on the bags and do stretching and things like that, and at a separate facility. But it's important for me to have time for myself to get in touch with how I'm going to teach the rest of the day. Then classes vary. I teach not only through Park Parks and Recreation Department, but also at corporations, and I also teach privately. So it'll go, I may have to teach a class in Carlsbad, at 9 o'clock, then I have to be in San Diego at 11 o'clock, then I have a private student at another location later at 2, and classes go on into the night. So.
And I assume, Marshall, when you teach, you really kind of get into it yourself?
There's no question about that. I really believe in what I do, and I think it's important for the people to develop a sense of trust in me and develop, again, a certain cohesion so that they understand, hey, this works for this man, and this is how he sees things, and maybe it can work for me the same way. Although everyone is an individual, it's important that we are there to accomplish the same goals.
Those of us who don't have a great deal of knowledge about this whole area, Marshall, and yet we see certain perceptions of it in motion pictures and on television, is there a great deal of communicating the mental processes to your students as well as the physical processes?
There's no question about that. Again, you have to have the proper attitude to be involved. It all starts up in your head. You have to your mind has to tell your body what it's going to do. So it's definitely your attitude.
Some of the perceptions that I have just from motion pictures and television too, it's like before I see the artistry and the athletic part of it, I kind of get the perception of communicating a mindset and even a reverence and respect, like you see before karate matches or judo matches, the bowing and all the rest. But there's like a real reverence for the whole thing before you get into the action sport. Is there a certain amount of that you are involved with your profession?
I lean more towards the self-defense aspect, which I'm not taking. I have great respect for all of the Oriental martial arts and the Occidental martial arts, the Western martial arts such as boxing and wrestling.
Right.
But there's again, the mental attitude is you need to know that you're going out there to perform, and performance in the sense that you're asking your body to do things that you might not think they would be capable of doing in a regular situation otherwise. But when you talk about the reverence, in my classes, we don't bow. I respect people as individuals. They respect me, of course, but it's hard to introduce, in my opinion, it's pretty hard to introduce a lot of Oriental philosophy and culture to people. I do it, how can I say this, not subversively, but I do it a little bit at a time. I don't ask them to really get into the Orient as much as I am. So that when you speak about the reverence for the whole aspect of getting out and competing, the program I'm involved with is geared more towards self-defense, which is street situations, which are not pretty. So it's more what can you do? Anything that you can possibly do to defend yourself.
Okay. All right. When you do get involved with your students and quote unquote spar with them, how do you control the fact that you obviously have a wealth of knowledge and about 1,000 more how do I say, years of backlog in a sense, knowledge-wise, from not getting out of control yourself and keeping it under control when you're dealing with students who are, many of them, I'm sure, dealing at a very amateur level when they first start with you. I mean, if you're in a sparring session, bottom line question, how do you control your own expertise so that your students don't get hurt from someone who has such vast knowledge as you do?
Well, I've never hurt anyone. People can hurt each other in the sense that my biggest responsibility is to gauge their interaction, because they start getting involved and they get pepped up and they really want to have contact. And that's one thing that that is a big part of this program, again, is contact, because in an actual street situation you're going to, and that's why I tell people time and again, you're going to get hit and it will hurt. Now, of course, we don't stand there with baseball bats and hit people and say, look, we're going to toughen you up, but they understand when they're blocking. We do certain exercises, certain drills where they actually are making contact with their arms, with their legs, and they're going to get bumped and they're going to get bruised. But the reality is that if someone were to attack you, you will get hit and it will hurt. So when I'm out there sparring with them, they have well, we'll go back to using the word that you did, maybe a certain reverence for me. They know that, you know, if I were to hit them, that it would be, you know, a really solid hit. I pull a lot of my punches, but I ask them, when we put on gear, I ask particularly the children and women to hit me as hard as they can when we're wearing full gear. It may sound kind of foolish to some people, but they need to know how hard they can hit. And in my condition, with my conditioning that I practice, as soon as I know they can hit hard enough, then I can say, okay, that's good. You've arrived at a certain level. Now, I don't want them hitting anyone else that hard.
Right.
Sparring, as I believe, as you know, you had mentioned before that you've been involved with some boxing and wrestling. Sparring doesn't mean you go out there and try to knock the other person's block off.
That's right.
Sparring's an exchange. You get out there and you work together, and as your punches and your kicks and your blocks start increasing, you work back and forth like that. The moment someone gets mad or something like that, it's over. They don't continue any longer. And I think the people that I've been working with are real good with their control. Control is the key word.
Okay. Marshall, just looking at the landscape of our country today, what's happening out there in your profession and allied professions? What's happening in our society, and what's happening in your profession, first of all, in this country today?
Well, anytime that you get an area that grows, as San Diego is growing, we've gone from being the 8th largest city to the 6th largest city in maybe the last 10 or 15 years. Tremendous leap. You're going to get a certain element. I mean, the more eggs you put in the basket, some of the eggs are going to be bad eggs. So a certain element gravitates towards a place when there's more people, and there's going to be more muggers, more rapists, more pickpockets, more burglars, whatever it is. So that's happening. Those types of people are out there. As far as what do I see for the business, you know, from my aspect, and similar businesses out there, I think it's going to grow. I think that self-defense, martial arts, are the bodybuilding craze of the 90s, whereas bodybuilding was big in the 80s. I think self-defense is going to be real big in the 90s because it allows people to understand that they can do the best they can with what they've got. You don't have to be 6'3", 200 pounds to really take care of yourself. You can be 5 foot tall and 120 pounds and really do the best you can with what you've got using your body weight.
I think what's fascinating to me, and we're going to learn much more about this, Marshall, is the fact that you integrate boxing and wrestling and kung fu, sansu. So that's very, very interesting to me. And I guess what you're doing is really integrating any and all vehicles that one can adopt for self-defense. And so I guess it kind of permeates practically anything that would make sense. Is that correct?
This is true. There's a lot of programs that I see people implementing, and they're taking from their skills in different disciplines, different backgrounds, and trying to put together what they think is best. I feel that, you know, the program that I put together is very functional. And again, we do have contact in there, and that comes from the boxing aspect, because you know that you're going to. It's offense and defense. You know, when you're attacked, you have to be able to ward the attack off, and you have to turn the tables. You're trying to establish control. It's similar to a chess game in a way, but you know that the consequences can be deadly, harmful.
Well, Marshall, we're going to look forward to the second half of this show, and we're all fascinated to see some of these demonstrations. You've been kind enough to prepare us for that. So we're going to look forward to this, Marshall. So if you will, please bear with us. We're going to go break right now for our community calendar and for our public service announcements, and then we'll be right back with you and be right back with you. So please stay tuned.
After dating the guy forever, you think I could tell him anything. Why is this so hard? I'm really scared.
It takes a lot of guts to tell someone he's too drunk to drive. But you can do it. Just say it. Because if you don't, there may be nothing left to say.
Kevin, I'm gonna drive.
Take the keys, call a cab, take a stand. Friends don't let friends drive drunk.
In Salisbury, Maryland, the hungry are being fed.
In Wind Falls, Indiana, a man who learned to read at 47 is making sure others learn earlier. Every day, someone in America is doing something to light up another life. But there is so much more to do. The light to do it is within us all. We only need to share it. Call the Points of Light Foundation. Do something good. Feel something real.
Welcome back. I'm Noel Horwin, A Day in the Life of North County. We're here with Marshall Hamil, one of the preeminent instructors of self-defense in Southern California. And Marshall, this half hour we're going to be treated to some demonstrations here. And could you tell us, first of all, the names of the people who you have here with us tonight?
Of course. We have Christina up front, and this is Tawny, and this is Queen and Jack.
Right. And could you tell us a little bit about what they're actually doing right now?
They're in their meditation. It's very important to, before you start classes, to sit down and do some breathing, because the biggest part of any self-defense or martial arts program is the breathing. You have to know how to have your breathing controlled. So what they're doing is emptying out anything that they brought in with them before, any trials or tribulations they might have. They're getting rid of that so that they can focus on the task at hand.
Okay. All right. Now, where do we start? What are we going to be looking at first here, Marshall?
Okay, if everyone will stand up, please. And let's see if we've got enough room. Why don't we start from on this side over here, everyone behind Christina. First thing they're going to do is just a warm-up roll. They always learn, one of the first things they learn in class is how to roll and how to fall. So right now you're going to see Christina's going to do a roll, and then she's going to fall backwards after. Okay, ready, Christina?
Okay.
Go. Very good. I'll explain a little bit what she did right there. Rolling is what you need to learn. If someone's going to throw you into the ground, you need to learn how to roll out of it. And then the falling, of course, if you get knocked down, you want to do a break fall, which you'll see. If Tawny, after you do your roll, will you stop, and I'll explain before you do your fall. Okay, go ahead and do your roll. You hear how she let her air out as she went? It's very important. As long as you're letting your air out, you won't get the wind knocked out of you. That's the big thing about breathing. You always need to be letting your air out. That's why when you hear boxers in the ring, they go during that exchange. When they throw a punch, they let their air out, and when they get hit in return, they let their air out. Okay, now she's going to do a fall. Now you watch when she falls. Okay, go ahead, Tawny. See how she threw her arms out to the side and allowed the weight to dissipate throughout her body. If she would have just fallen where she just gets pushed back, and she would just fall and concentrate in an area like, oh, my shoulder, or oh, my hip, she would fall in that area and hurt herself. But she went ahead and used her whole body weight to fall on. Thank you, Tawny. Queen, you going to do the same thing? This gives them a little warm-up here. At your leisure. And a fall. Thank you. And Jack, it's very important that they know how to do that, so when they do techniques and they get knocked down, they don't get hurt. Proceed. Thank you.
That's terrific. You know, thank you very much. Marshall, you know, does it become ingrained in them that here they have the psychological knowledge that they're going to be putting on demonstrations, they're ready for it, but is there a part of your training that involves how to put this into the psyche, because sometimes, regrettably, when actual real-life situations happen, you're not quote-unquote prepared, and instincts have to take over. So is that part of the training too?
That's what training's all about. You go there and you practice in your training sessions, and you keep falling and you keep rolling. So you know, as the children learn. Well, I'll take a moment right here to explain a little of the philosophy, if I can, by asking Christina a question, if you don't mind, while I go down to her level. Sure, absolutely. Christina, will you come out here for a minute, please? Over here. Thanks. What happens if someone comes up to you? Do you need her to face a certain way?
No,
okay.
That's fine.
What happens if someone comes up to you and calls you names? What do?
Walk away.
That's right. And if someone comes up to you and pushes you, what do?
Fall and then walk away.
That's right. You see, they know that if someone pushes them, they can fall down and they can still go away from the situation. They don't have to interact with that. And if someone comes up and tries to hit you, what do?
Defend and then go away and then tell a teacher or a parent.
That's right. You always speak to someone in authority afterwards. So thank you, Christina.
Very good.
The point being there, you know, you ask about how is that ingrained. She knows, you know, even at her young age, that if someone comes up and causes trouble with her, you know, she doesn't have to start fighting right away. That isn't what this is about. I'm not training a bunch of commandos. She knows that if someone says something to her, you know, it's just words. Words aren't going to hurt her.
Right.
You know, it doesn't matter what someone says. It's all in how you accept it, what they say, whether it's a positive or negative remark.
Right.
Following that, if someone comes up and pushes her, she's a pretty strong kid. You know, she comes to class and she works out. If someone comes up and pushes her, not a big deal. She knows how to fall down. She falls down, she gets up and walks away. She doesn't need to stand there and, you know, stand up for any, you know, ridiculous little thing like that. Now, if someone tries to hit her, that's serious. Someone's really trying to hurt her. She knows how to defend herself, and upon doing so, she gets in contact with the proper people, her parents, teachers, someone in authority, and let them know what transpired.
Very good. Very good. All right, where do we go to next, Marshall?
Okay, if you'll come
You're in
over.
television. It's your show.
If you'll please come over and
Okay.
get some pads for backhands, please. I want to just take a moment here to talk about breathing and balance. It's very important for them to exercise their chi. Chi is energy that comes from your center point, the center of your being, where your balance point is. You'll notice that each time they're letting their air out when they hit, at the maximum point of any exercise, whether you're hitting a tennis ball, shooting a basketball, lifting weights, you're always letting your air out at that point. So they've learned to concentrate their balance point from their chi. This is where all of their energy comes from. So each time that they hit something, they're letting that air flow and they're putting their whole being into it. They don't just hit with their arm, they swivel at the hips, they pivot on their feet, and they hit with their whole body. Now the psychological aspect of this chi that they express, this exhalation of the air, is that A, you're scared if someone's trying to attack you. I don't care who you are, whether if you're you know, the big football player or a boxer or whoever, you're scared when someone's trying to attack you, okay?
Right.
So the first thing that you do in letting out that air is you calm yourself, all right? Secondly, hopefully it's going to scare your attacker. And thirdly, as long as you let your air out, you're not going to get the wind knocked out of you, which as you know, if you've had it knocked out of you, is very painful.
Yeah.
So there's three things for the reason that they make this sound and let their air out, okay?
Okay. All right.
Okay, ready on the sound of my voice, please? Hit. 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 Good. Okay, and let's go with top kicks now. Okay, what they just did right there was called a backhand. Excuse me, I guess I didn't explain that very well, but the backhand they would use if someone were coming up behind them. For instance, if you came up behind me and tried to grab me, they'd turn with that backhand right there, just like that. Very powerful punch. They're using the side of their hand right there.
Believe me, I take your word for it, Marshall.
Now they're going to go with top kicks, using the top part of their foot right here, which if they get in condition by doing this barefoot. Naturally, on the street, they'd usually have shoes on. This kick is very effective. Okay, it would usually go to the groin area. This is the kick that you would want to do right there. Okay, ready? And the sound of my voice. Kick. 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 Very good. Again, we're real big on contact. We use these pads, and they actually have to get the feeling of kicking something or hitting something. There's 4 different avenues there's 4 different lengths if we were involved in an altercation. Okay, there's 4 different ranges.
Hopefully I wouldn't be that stupid.
This is safety right here. Provided you don't have some sort of weapon, you can't hit me. Okay, you can't hurt me unless you're going to throw a rock at me, a bottle, a chain, or a knife, or shoot at me with a gun. You can't hurt me from this distance. Okay. Now, from where our legs come into contact, okay, that's long range. All right. Long range, you use your legs. Then you're at medium range. Mid-range is with the arms, okay? And then close range is grappling, where you'd use fingers to go up to the eyes, you'd use your elbows, and you'd use grappling techniques. So again, there's 4 ranges that they get accustomed to. There's safety, there's long range for kicks, medium range for punches, and close range for strikes with the fingers and with the elbows. And again, the goal is to get back to safety as quick as you can.
Very, very good.
Okay, let's try round kicks, please. They're going to use the same part of their foot that they did on these top kicks, but with the round kicks, they're actually turning their hip over. There's tremendous power in your hips. Again, you're always using your hips when you're doing anything in self-defense. Ready? Kick. 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 Very good. Okay, if you'll come over here for a minute, Queen. That kick that Queen just used, that round kick, that's something if I was standing in this position and I came after, she'd kick right here up to the knee like that, okay? Kick to the back of the knee, which would bring me back like that, and then give her an opportunity to use a follow-up punch or a poke or whatever she needed to do. But the point is, she's at safety range there. As I come into her, she knows that it's incumbent upon her to take the initiative, because I'm trying to gain control, but in return, she gains control here, okay? So as I come in, she throws that round kick, okay? brings me down like this, then punches, pokes, does what she needs to do. All right?
Very good, very good.
Okay, let's
You've
go.
all made believers out of me, let me tell you that.
Let's go with blocks, Christina, with Jack, please. Another basic drill that they work on, of course, is just the blocking aspect. This is where it all begins. When we're talking about self-defense, we're talking about blocking first. I don't teach anyone to go out and start trouble, but they need to know how to block, of course, if someone tries to hit them first. Then they establish control afterwards. After blocking, then comes the other aspects of self-defense. But first, it's blocking. So if you will, please just go ahead with the drill.
Up and down.
Yes. Just start out nice and slow with her. Notice how she steps forward each time using her body weight. She keeps her hands up and in front of her.
Wow.
Very good.
Wow.
Thank you, Christina.
Very impressive, very impressive.
Okay, we'll have Tawny and Queen do the backhands and palms, please.
We've got about 2.5 minutes, I think, so we have to move it along.
Okay. 2.5 minutes for the whole segment?
Mm-hmm.
Boy.
We'll be back, though. We'll be back.
Okay, well, okay, go ahead with the palms and the backhands. Now, when I just talked about combinations, as Queen was doing to me, she's going to do the same thing on this pad here. She's going to do a backhand and then a palm, okay?
Okay.
Ready? Hit. 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 Good, thank you. Okay, now where this would come in handy again, Queen, will you come over here, please? If I were coming up behind her, she's standing in this position, okay, and I came up behind her and tried to grab her here and pull her back to me, she comes back right away with this backhand to the face, and now, as she snapped my head back, she steps forward and comes in with the palm, okay, using the palm, coming up to the bridge of the nose, up under the chin. Now, the key is sending the other person back on their heels, okay?
Okay.
I'll take a moment here to talk about what the chi is all about again. Tawny, if you'll come out here, please. Now, I can be entirely scared of Tawny as she comes up. If Tawny were the attacker, and as she comes at me, and I'm scared, I can go back like this. Or if she comes after me, I can step forward. I can be just as scared, or I can go just forward like that. The difference between going back and going forward, and whether you're taking your air in or letting your air out, okay? So what they're learning to do is step forward and let their air out.
Okay.
All right?
We have about 30 seconds, Marshall. I don't know. We have a few more because we can.
Yeah. Well, okay. We'll do the rest in the second half then.
Okay.
Just some actual techniques.
Wrapping up for this show, Marshall, what would be the biggest point of advice in self-defense if you were to say in one sentence? When you have a spur-of-the-moment situation, you've got to think fast.
And you've got to fight back. It's incumbent upon you to fight back.
Right.
Go for the eyes. Go for the eyes. There's no way you can build muscle anywhere else in the body or bone, or there's bone, but there's no protection for the eyes, even if they're wearing glasses. Go right for the eyes, grab the hair, and smash the head into a hard surface.
Okay. Well, on that note, it's realistic to be sure and very true and balanced, but that's the way it is. And we want to thank Marshall Hamil and these terrific people for giving a demonstration, and we'll look forward to seeing you once again next week.
We want to thank Jack Powell, Chrysler Plymouth, and Daniels Cablevision for helping to make this show possible.
evening. I'm Noel Horwin, and welcome to A Day in the Life of North County. This evening, we are very privileged as we